Welcome to Change and Triumph. We're here with Dave Foster, a serial real estate investor and tax strategist whose career pivoted on an unexpected $30,000 tax bill. Talk about change. So we're definitely going to talk about that, Dave. Let me start this off with when you first got hit with that tax liability, what was your biggest misconception you uncovered about building wealth?
If you ignore taxes, they'll go away. I think that was the building wealth in real estate. A mentor of mine, I think, said it best. Everybody knows the mantra, you make money in real estate when you buy it. Exactly. Because we're all out there looking for the best deals. He said, Dave, the measure of your wealth is not how much you made, it's how much you keep. And that's when the back door of taxes clicked in my head. And I began the rest of my career still trying to buy real estate. Right. But more importantly, focusing on how we use that wealth and how we keep that wealth so it keeps working for us.
So, how did that revelation set the course for your next 25 years?
Well, that's a great story. We were actually trying to be very intentional because it sounds like a Pimsleur advertisement. I was a Kansas farm boy and she was a Minneapolis supermodel. And we met in Denver, Colorado. Now, so far, the one thing that you see in all of that, or that you don't see in all of that, is ocean. But after we got married, we started in our careers, we had our first child and we wanted to throw the TV away. We didn't want to do anything but just look at this little bundle of joy. And it kind of just hit us all at the same time. The greatest commodity you have in life is not wealth, position, or fame. It's time. And if you don't use your time wisely, you will waste your life. And we said, well, we kind of felt like, are we wasting our time having these careers when what we really want to do is be with this little one and their siblings to come? And so we kind of thought, well, what should we do? And I don't know, someone on a date night said, let's go buy a boat and sail around the world. It'll be easy. But what? So there you go. The Minneapolis girl, the Kansas boy living in Colorado decided to buy a sailboat and sail around the world without a clue how to sail and without having a clue how to do it.
God, I love this story.
Yeah. So the next crazy statement out of somebody's mouth was, how are we going to do that? Let's become real estate investors. It'll be easy, she said. So we became real estate investors. And because my nickname is Ready, Fire, Aim Dave, I went and bought a property, fixed it up, put renters in it, established it, and sold it. And we thought,
I
there's the start.
Dave, that's an amazing story. That's an amazing story. I gotta know, your wife suggested this. This wasn't your idea. So who was your mentor?
She would claim plausible deniability on all this, but I'm pretty sure it was coming from her. I've had several mentors in my life. One of the greatest ones, as far as real estate goes, we never met. His name was Carlton Sheets. Do you know that name?
Of course I know.
Isn't that crazy?
Of course.
Carlton was the original guru of all gurus,
Yes.
the no money down guy. We are both, and I've always been a learner by doing and by researching. So I happened to find him one night, and that's it. I just started studying what he did. And so, wait a minute, I can do this. We could do this. This could work. The one thing Carlton didn't talk about, though?
What's that?
Taxes.
No, they don't. None of the gurus talk about taxes typically.
And that's the biggest problem. We sold this property and we said, man, that's it. We are on our way. We're going to be out of here and have our boat in no time at all. And then my accountant said, wait a minute, Dave, 30,000 of that goes to the government.
Right.
And that put everything so it was
Capital gains tax, right? Not income tax.
that was capital gains tax at that time. Yeah. So it's even worse if it's ordinary income. Then you've got this nasty little imaginary game that the IRS plays with you called depreciation. They give you a tax break while you own the property, but then they make you pay it back after you sell the property.
If you sell it before 27 years, right?
If you sell it at any time,
Oh,
you could
that's
own the
different.
property for 40 years and you will pay back your depreciation.
Never knew that. That is
It's the ugliest secret, and you have to pay a higher percentage. Depreciation recapture is 5% of the depreciation that went in.
so you've now helped thousands of investors defer capital gains through 1031 exchanges.
Yeah, we discovered the 1031 exchange was this was all about mid 90s, 1996, 97-ish, when a big lawsuit had been settled between a guy named Starker and the IRS. And guess what? The IRS lost. That never happens. But the IRS lost in this case.
Okay.
And so they had to make 1031 exchanges available to regular investors like you and I.
Wonderful.
And
So,
that's when we
hold on.
started.
So, both of us are real estate professionals. For listeners new to real estate, what core principle makes a 1031 exchange such a game changing tool for deferred taxes and accelerated growth?
Right. Well, let's take that $30,000
Mm-hmm.
30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There's a funny little math rule called the rule of 72 that if you divide your interest rate by 72, that tells you how long it would take for that money to double. So if I had $30,000 that I invested at 10% in 7.2 years, it would double.
Right.
Now let's spread that out over 30 years. How many times would $30,000 double?
Seven
30,
sided.
60, 180, 360, 520. And all of a sudden, that's real money. That's what the 1031 exchange is. Because instead of paying the tax on your real estate sales, investment real estate sales, you get to keep using that money for your benefit. So if I would have done a 1031 exchange on that first one, I would have taken that $30,000 and I would have bought more real estate, which would have made more money. And then when I sold it, I would have done a 1031 exchange again and kept all of that money working for me. It's just a form of compound interest,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so powerful when you can do that throughout your entire career.
It sounds like, I mean, that was a huge turning point, a huge moment that reshaped your philosophy on long term investment and wealth preservation. I'm so excited about the way you explained it. It's so simple. I never thought of a 1031 exchange that way.
Yeah, well, it was your turning point's a great way to phrase it. Up until that time, I was the king of ADHD. I
Hmm.
would get a job, a career, I'd build a business. I could handle it for about 8 years. And then I just had to stop because it got boring to me. When I discovered this and I saw what it was doing for us and I saw what we were able to develop to do for others, it's now going on 29 years that I've been doing 1031s for people. And I still get such a jazz seeing someone's eyes open. They go, wait a minute, that means I can do this.
So you relocated your entire portfolio from Denver to Florida using back to back 1031 exchanges?
Yeah, well, remember, we wanted to go sailing,
Right.
but there's no water in Denver.
No.
So
Well, no, there's the Colorado River.
there is, yeah, that's hard to sail on. But so we knew that we needed to move to water. And so we started to be very strategic about every time we would sell a piece of investment property, we would 1031 exchange. Now that's one side of it. Another side of where I live is helping people to perform. It's actually something that's very easy to do, but the 121 transaction where they sell their primary residence.
Okay.
Now, if you buy a piece of property and you live in it for 2 years and you're a married couple, then when you sell that property, you can take the first $500,000 of profit tax free.
You know, there's so many misnomers about that because I've heard, and I'm in real estate, I just don't pay attention to these things. And it's crazy that I don't. But, there's professionals like yourself for that. I have heard on multiple occasions if it's your primary residence, you don't pay capital gains at all. But you're saying right now, for someone that's in New York City that's selling their house for $1.5 million and they bought it at 300 and they want to move to Florida. Now they can only take a free pass on the income on the first 500 and they still have to pay taxes on the other 700,000 or whatever that is.
Well, yes, but hang on with me for a quick second here,
Okay.
because where I've lived is in the confluence of those two parts of the code. So what we did was we would move several times when we were in Denver. Every time we would take 500,000 up to 500,000 of that profit tax-free, whatever it was. The tax-free money went into the fund to buy the boat. Every time we did a 1031 exchange, that went into new real estate. And then as we figured out where we were going to go, we first moved to Connecticut, and we moved everything to Connecticut by way of the 1031 exchange. So now our portfolio was in Connecticut. We sold our primary residence in Colorado. That money was tax-free. Where did I move? Into one of my investment properties. Because that's not a taxable event, but that converted that into my next primary residence.
Right.
And then we could keep going. Now, we discovered in Connecticut very quickly that summer is 1 month long and everything else is gray and ugly. And Long Island Sound never gets warm.
Yeah.
So Florida was the place. We figured it out pretty quick.
Well,
So
you
we did
came from Denver, so that 1 month, I don't know, is Denver weather better than Connecticut?
oh my gosh, 300 days of sunshine.
Really?
It's gorgeous.
I didn't know
Absolutely
that.
gorgeous. Yeah.
Okay, so Denver, I never knew Denver was similar to Florida. So it's sunshine, but it gets cold? I've never lived there.
Up in the mountains, it does. But down in Denver, it's actually fairly mild. I don't
Really?
know. Ask half of California. They've all moved to Colorado. It feels like, anyways.
I always never knew that either. That's why I love this show because we get to learn new things and share new things that no one ever realized. And I definitely thought Denver was cold because I've driven from California through the grapevine to New York many years ago, and all I can remember is freezing cold weather.
You can find snow if you want it. Yeah. But
Okay.
we decided we needed to get to Florida. So we did the exact same thing. Primary residence sales, tax-free, by the boat, 1031s into investment real estate, moved to Florida, and 10 years to the week of us setting our 10-year goal, we bought the boat, a 53-foot sailboat with tax-free dollars. We moved aboard and raised our children for 10 years,
On the
living off
boat?
of the income from our fleet of vacation rental real estate.
Wow.
So that's how we used our combination of the two. But are you ready to have your mind blown? Yeah. That's a great way to call it. Yeah. Okay, you ready for me to go back and blow your mind now?
Yes.
So you talked about those people that have about $1 million in gain,
Right.
and they're only going to be able to take 500,000 of it.
Yes.
So do exactly the opposite of what we did. Turn your primary residence into an investment property
Right.
and rent it for a year. Now, if you've got that kind of income, you probably have other places you can live or
Right.
travel for a year or whatever. And then at the end of the year, you sell that property. Now, when you sell that property, you're selling an investment piece of real estate.
Right.
So it qualifies for the 1031 exchange, which lets you
Back up.
defer
Back up.
all
So the
tax.
primary residence does not qualify for the 1031?
That is correct. But when you turn it into an investment real estate, it qualifies for a 1031 exchange. So you could sell that property, go buy more investment real estate, and defer all the tax. Now that's kind of cool, but here's where it gets even better. Did you still live in that property for 2 out of the previous 5 years? Sure you did.
Hmm.
So you also qualify for the 121 exemption. You get to do both. 500,000 is tax-free to you. The other 500,000 of deferred gain goes to buy more real estate.
You
And
really
that's
are an expert. And I mean, you mentioned you have ADHD. I don't think so because you made a plan and together you stuck to it. You got the boat. This is amazing. This is fantastic.
like I say, my wife claims all credit and she's got plausible deniability. She's probably right. But yeah, it's those kinds of things today that are just so huge.
That's huge.
Because when you can convert tax to tax free, when you can defer tax for decades, and I actually have a family right now from Connecticut that are on their third generation of real estate investing without paying any tax.
Right.
We started doing 1031 exchanges for their grandfather.
Wow.
When he passed away, his properties went to his son at what's called a stepped up basis. So all the deferred tax over those years went away. Now, his son didn't need us for a few years, did he? Because he didn't have any more profit. Everything was tax free. But a few years into it, his son started doing 1031 exchanges again. And then when he passed away a couple years ago, his children got the properties at a stepped up basis. tax
And
free.
at this point, they're not dealing with inheritance tax.
No, that's what the step up in basis does for you. You inherit it, and as long as you're inheriting the real estate, the tax disappears.
That's amazing. So this is true generational wealth, and all I hear you talking about is passive income. Now there's something. Okay, so this is wonderful because from your first property, you're basically having free and clear properties all the way through. So it seems like you don't have as much stress from tenants not paying or cycles in the market.
Well, there's two things you have to do to fully defer all tax. And the first one is you have to purchase at least as much as you sold. So let's say you sold for $1 million. You got to buy $1 million in real estate. Now, if you've got a $600,000 mortgage on that, you also have to use all of your proceeds to do that. So in that example, you'd have to buy $1 million of real estate using $600,000 of cash.
Okay.
So many times people don't have enough money to bring in outside money of their own. So they end up taking out new loans.
Right.
That happens very, very frequently. So you don't lose all of your mortgage risk immediately. But here's the strategy that we'll use with our clients many times. We would say take $500,000 of your $600,000 and go buy a $500,000 property free and clear
Mhm.
with your 1031 exchange. Now we've done exactly what you talked about.
Right.
No more risk on that property. Just keep the lights on and the real estate taxes paid.
Right.
Take the other $100,000 and go buy a property for $500,000 using that 100 as a down payment.
Got it.
Did you buy $1 million in property? You sure did. Did you use all 600 of cash? You sure did. But what do
Wonderful.
you have? One property free and clear that's out of harm's way, and another property that you're still getting the components of the internal rate of return. So you're still getting the interest, you're getting the amortization on the loan, you're getting the depreciation write off, you're getting the appreciation. And is it at risk? Sure, but only $100,000 of your money is at risk. And
Okay.
that's what we would call a diversification exchange.
That's amazing, Dave. That's really amazing. So let's talk about this because we're right here on the precipice of investor pitfalls and strategic workarounds. That's literally what we're talking about. And let's get to the crust of it because a lot of us out here are doing syndications. And so with those syndications aren't 1031 friendly. They usually aren't very 1031 friendly due to LP interest structures. Oh,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, well, syndications have been around as long as time, right? Whether you syndicate a racehorse or basically they're just a group of people getting together. Somebody organizes it. We call them the syndicator now, and they form this entity that's going to invest in real estate. And most of the people get to do it passively. Now, up until about 10 years ago, I didn't have a gray hair on my head. Every one of these has a syndication's name on it. I swear. Yes, you're absolutely right. Syndications typically will not work because what you're buying, if I was going to invest in a syndication, what I'm buying is not real estate. I'm buying a membership interest in an entity that owns real estate. And
okay.
that doesn't qualify for a 1031 exchange.
That's not a qualification. No.
1031 exchange has to be a sale of real estate and a purchase of real estate. So, that being said, here's how we got the gray hairs because we found ways to deal with it.
Yes.
The first one is that if the syndicator has some bright attorneys, they could create a way to allow a real estate investor to sell their real estate in 1031 into what's called a tenant in common portion of the syndicated property. They're actually taking deed to that percentage of the property.
That's right.
Yeah, a little complicated, takes some effort by the attorneys. And so generally, syndicators that are accepting those have a little bit higher minimum.
Got it.
So, yeah, but that can work. The other option,
You could compile, like, let's say you bought your own investment property and you bought the two different investment properties. You bought one free and clear. Let's take that example of the typical Brooklyn, New Yorker. I'm from New York. So this is happening a lot right now. This is a common thing. because people that bought their houses 10 years ago in Brooklyn for $350,000, their homes are now worth 1.2 to 1.5 million, and they're bringing that cash to Florida and messing up the market. Okay.
Can we just say 4 words? Two-family brownstones.
Yes. Yes, that is typically what they are. Two-family brownstones. 2 to 3 twos, but usually 2, 3, 4 family brownstones, and that's exactly what's happening. So, using your scenario earlier, okay, let's say they took 500,000 for themselves, and then they bought a house. They bought another property that was an investment property with another 500,000 free and clear, and then they used the third 500K in a tenant in common syndication. Is that a possibility?
Yes, as long as they're buying an actual percentage of the real estate,
Mhm.
that works perfectly well.
Mhm.
Here's another twist, though, that they could do. Forget the extra 500,000.
Okay.
They're selling for 1 million. They bought for 5, free and clear. They bought another 500,000 with debt. So everything's covered for their
Okay.
1031.
Right.
Here's a property over here that has no debt. Why don't you refinance it and take that 400,000, go buy any syndication you want? It's the best workaround.
That is a huge workaround. Are there any what creative structures or techniques have you used to keep investors inside the 1031 framework?
In terms of,
In
give me a
terms
little
of,
more
well, that
perspective
was
here.
one idea. Are there any others that come to mind?
For the syndication, to invest in syndications, well, you could start your own.
That's true.
You got $600,000, contribute that into an LP or a GP, start your own syndication. The other one, as much as it pains me to say it, is to don't do the 1031 exchange. If you really want to go into syndication, do some very, very thorough math and see what your opportunity cost is going to be by having to pay the tax, and then be willing to pay the tax and move into the syndication. It's not my first choice.
Okay.
It's not. It's something that just pains me to even say.
Okay.
But another mentor of mine once said, nobody goes broke paying taxes on profit. Ever. It just feels like it.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so you've witnessed 3 decades of administrations debating 1031 reforms. As the political changes, we just had the big, beautiful bill change. We've got that 100% depreciation back. So, as the political winds shift, what's your forecast for the future of 1031 exchanges, and how should investors proactively adapt their strategies?
Interestingly enough,
Mm.
every president that I have been under for those 30 some years has talked about changing, modifying, or doing away with 1031 exchanges. Whether they were a blue president or a red president, they've all talked about it. And if I could give you one guess, which president is the only president who's actually changed it? What would you
Reagan.
say?
Reagan. I'd say Reagan.
Okay, that would be really nice, but unfortunately, Reagan's a little before me. The gray hair is not quite that old. Nope, it wasn't Reagan. President Trump is the only president that has modified. Now, President Biden tried to do it. President Obama tried to do it. The Bushes looked at doing it, but the only one who actually did it was Trump. And that is actually key because of what he did in terms of what's going to happen now going forward with the big, beautiful bill
Yes.
that we're all enjoying while I live on the Gulf of Dave Foster because I've renamed it. Thank you. I expect Google to pick that up any day now.
Gulf of Dave Foster.
Gulf of
That's
Dave
Gulf
Foster,
of
yes.
not the Gulf is going to continue to be rechanged.
So what President Trump did in his first administration,
Mhm.
2017, and the
Yes.
Tax Cuts and Job Acts bill was that he eliminated the option to do 1031 exchanges on personal property. We used to be able to do 1031 exchanges on jet planes, heavy equipment, restaurant equipment, hotel equipment, those kinds of things, gas pumps, that kind of stuff.
Oh. So
He
he eliminated.
eliminated that. Yes.
Oh.
So it was only for real estate. But in exchange for that, he brought in bonus depreciation. And so now you can't do a 1031 exchange on a gas well, but you can depreciate it much more quickly. Now, heaven forbid that I should throw motives at someone, but President Trump does not buy and sell a lot of real estate. He tends to develop and buy and hold.
Yes.
So what's better for him, a 1031 exchange when he sells or depreciation as he's owning it?
Yeah, depreciation because
Absolutely.
Yeah, then you get to yeah, accelerate all of that income, accelerate the depreciation to day 1. Why don't you, if you don't mind, would you explain bonus depreciation to us?
This is like defining pornography in the 60s. You know, as Ted Lasso would say, it's hard to do, but you know it when you see it. All sorts of different classes of property. Real
We'll
estate
just
is,
stick to 1031. Don't worry, I
this
got
all just
plenty.
went downhill real quick, didn't it?
Okay.
Every class of property has a potentially different depreciable cycle. Some you could depreciate fully in 1 year, some 5 years. Residential real estate, typically, you get to depreciate over 27 and a half years. Commercial property, I think, is 35. And so, but what bonus depreciation allows you to do is to shorten the time for a variety of reasons. Some it's because you're using what's called 179. So I'm taking a trailer home, and instead of depreciating that as part of the real estate, I'm depreciating the trailer house itself. So
Okay,
I get to take all that in 1 year.
got it.
Then you do what's called a cost segregation study, which is even more hoodoo voodoo, because you're taking a piece of real estate and you're saying this isn't a piece of real estate. This is some land. This is a structure, but there's a whole bunch of components that aren't real estate, like an HVAC system, a heating system. There's copper wiring, and all of that kind of stuff we're going to separate out. So you get to depreciate it much more quickly. So, I mean, that's the 10-second primer on it. What's that?
It's because land is not depreciable, correct?
Land is not depreciable, right? Now, the upside, you're able using these new depreciation models to greatly increase your depreciation benefit. But remember that we talked about at the very beginning that when you sell that real estate, you have to pay all
Have
that
to pay it
back.
back.
Not if you do a 1031 exchange.
Interesting.
So now you can get the benefit of all the depreciation, and you could do the 1031 exchange to keep it deferred.
I'm going to pick one of the gray hairs out of the library of your head. And I have a question for you. Is it possible that in one of those scenarios of those syndications that you mentioned that gave you all your gray hairs, did you mentioned this already. Let's say you were tenants in common and then you did a 1031 exchange. You did that since 2017, you had the depreciation. Did it work? I mean, a lot of times many people talk about theory, but they don't have the gray hairs that you do to talk about facts. This is
Yeah.
happened.
Well, actually, what happens is in that scenario, it could be a very, very negative thing because when they 1031 exchange into their tenants in common position,
Well, no,
they're def-
I'm saying out of it. I'm saying, okay, typical multifamily deal that we do.
okay.
Let's say it's 3 years. It was a Class C value add. A lot of my colleagues do Class C value add, and investors can get, let's say, 2x returns in 3 to 5 years. So let's say we're at the end of the 5 years since 2017. I don't know if you were involved in a deal since then. And then they put the money in through a 1031 exchange and then made the passive income along the way, made their profits. That property was depreciable. And so they got the accelerated depreciation. Now the property sold, and now the IRS has some questions for you. Okay, this property is sold. You were a tenant in common that owned this amount of interest, and now you're going to be going into a 1031 with that profit into a new deal.
That's exactly right. That's one scenario, and that can work perfect because
Okay.
that will keep your depreciation at bay. What happens occasionally is the syndicator will create a model where you'll 1031 into a tenant in common portion and on longer holds, they will then have you contribute your tenant in common interest in real estate to the GP
Okay.
in exchange for membership interest.
Right.
And this is somewhat the same principle as a 721 upreit, where
Okay.
you're 1031 exchanging into eventually a share of a REIT.
Okay.
You can get their tax deferred, but then when that GP sells, all of that depreciation that you deferred, all of that gain that you deferred, plus the gain and depreciation on the new property comes due for you. So that's why if you're going to start as a tenant in common, you kind of want to finish as a tenant in common.
Got it.
Or there is another option. It's called the lazy 1031,
Okay.
which really appeals to me, sort of, because of the L word. If because of the speed with which you can cost seg and take your bonus depreciation, if you sell the property and as a syndication and then purchase new property in that same tax year so that you could do the cost segregation for that year,
Right.
many times you can offset a lot of the gain that you're going to have to pay with the cost seg on your new property.
Wow.
And then when you sell that, you keep recycling. It does mean that you got to be on your toes with replacement properties. And it also means that you're never going to get more depreciable basis. And what 1031 investors love to do is sell a property with a basis, say, of $100,000 and go buy a $200,000 property. So they get an additional $200,000 of basis. Sell a property with $500,000 in basis, go buy a $2 million property so that it increases your depreciable basis by $1.5 million. And all of a sudden you are offsetting a whole lot of your income from real estate with depreciation by itself. That's a great way to retire.
Dave, I think you told us so many ways to retire, how the wealthy really play the game, and how to be triumphant. And we cannot close this podcast. I've got the next two segments are like really, really important. And the whole world is changing with AI and it's just evolving now. So AI is rewriting deal analysis, copywriting, client engagement in real estate, in an arena governed by detailed tax law. Where do you see AI adding the most value, and where does human expertise remain irreplaceable?
Great question. I have a bias, and my bias is because I've actually had clients in the last 24 months who have come to me saying, Dave, is this true? Because I saw this on AI. Google's AI showed this to me. And I will go back and I will look at it and I will actually be able, because I'm old or because of my experience, whichever, able to go back and find the source material that Google AI used to give the answer,
Right.
and it's wrong.
Wow.
So my bias is you've got to be so careful because at its core, AI is nothing more than a congregator of all the world's knowledge.
Right.
Knowledge, well, I'm not even going to say knowledge, of all of the
You're right.
information.
Well, the information is not knowledge. I mean, it's not wisdom either. Information is just what everyone said.
That's right. So
Which
if I
which
write an article that's
Yeah,
wrong, Google
right.
or ChatGPT can pick
Yeah.
that up. And the next thing you know, so is it got to use? Absolutely it does. But we need people continually going into fields where they're going to be doing boots on the ground, research using AI, but also learning how to work through the tax codes themselves to make sure that we don't slip up. Because the last time I checked, using AI was not an excuse to get out of an IRS fine.
You've joked about your son writing flawless emails with ChatGPT. Beyond the novelty, what deeper lesson does that example teach us about marrying technology with the nuance of complex financial planning?
100 years ago, when my family were farming in Kansas and there wasn't even a phone,
Mm.
you had to drive down the road to find out what seeds your neighbor was planting so that you could do the same because their fields looked so good. 50 years ago, it was party lines, phones. 30 years ago, the computer. Now, you've got to embrace change, but not just for change's sake. In my mind, that's for the bleeding edge people. Go accept change for change's sake. That's fine. Once it's proven, I'll use it. But you've got to be willing to use it. Because look at the prolific expanse of products now in the short-term rental vacation field,
Right.
property management field, the accounting management field. If you use it judiciously and you don't simply rely on it to always be right, it's going to be your friend. Absolutely.
Awesome.
But it's
Awesome.
only a tool.
It is a tool. It is a tool like every other tool that you just mentioned, the telephone, copywriter, the whatever. It's the latest tool and we have to keep it. And I love what you said about you have to change with the times. You can't just, oh, I'm going to stay using, my mathematical accounting ways, or I'm going to physically read all of the 1031 exchange new laws because there is software that's coming out it's going to be better and better, and you have to grow with the world. It's just how it is.
If I could turn my screen around, I'd show you the abacus on my desk
Awesome. Awesome. And you still use it.
all the time as a cat toy.
So your faith underpins how you turned a career setback into a purpose driven vocation. How has your spiritual perspective shaped both your entrepreneurial decisions and your passion for education, for educating others?
Jesus said that the two greatest commandments were first to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the follow up to that you find in the Proverbs, where it says, rely on God with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. And as we've gone forward in our life, that's what we've attempted to do, is to let God direct our paths, because ultimately, it was funny as you were talking about artificial intelligence, AI. I thought, what would you call God? That's kind of like the
Mm,
EI, eternal intelligence.
I love that.
I know, isn't that cool? I just thought of that.
Cool. I love
That's,
that.
but then the second,
Watch, that's going to trend.
EI, let's bring it. Come on. But then the second commandment that Jesus said was exactly the same, is love your neighbor as yourself. And as I've accomplished, as we've done things, as we've seen joys and triumphs, my life would be hollow, and it would not be what God wanted for me if I kept that for myself, because He wants me to love my neighbor as myself. And that means extending to them the same advantages that I can. I've just managed to turn it into a business model, and I love it.
That is so awesome. So you have written a book, Lifetime Tax Free Wealth, and uses case studies to drive its message. Why do you believe storytelling, far more than raw numbers, is the most powerful vehicle for teaching investors?
Ever watched a bunch of sixth grade kids in math class?
Yeah.
They all fall asleep, don't they?
Yes, pretty much.
Take all those sixth grade kids and put them around a campfire at night
Mm,
telling spooky stories. They're all going to be awake. I think storytelling is just so relevant, because if you tell enough stories from enough perspectives, everyone can say, that's me. And you can start to follow that model. I literally thought when I was starting to write the book that I was writing a how-to book, just like everybody else does. This is how to do
right.
these 5 things, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, by the end of it, I realized I just want to tell the stories of my clients and myself, people that I know that have used these well,
Right.
so others can be inspired.
That's right. Because I mean, and we've talked about that even in this podcast today. It's like, okay, how have you actually seen it done? Because when there's so many people on social media that read someone else's book and then they talk about the theory of things. But when you've actually lived it and you're doing it and you've been doing it for that wisdom is like you can't find it anywhere. It's not something that comes and goes. It's not something that can be read on Chat GPT, right?
Thank you. That was a very kind word.
So you're always launching new projects under the 1031 investor brand. What upcoming initiative are you most excited about, and how will it empower investors in the next market cycle?
Well, it's great that you talk about the next market cycle, right? Because where we're at right now isn't where we were yesterday, and it's not where we're going to be tomorrow.
It's not.
And that goes back to that whole thing of you've got to be prepared to change. Now, real estate, the cycle itself, it's absolutely predictable. It's been this way for thousands of years.
Right.
When it changes from a crash to a buyer's market to a seller's market to whatever, can't predict that. But we know that it's going to go through the cycle steps. And so being able to recognize where it's at, respond right now, and also prepare for where it's going to be is so critical. And we do that with our ongoing education. We're training realtors all the time because we do continuing education classes for them. But we're starting now to think that maybe we need to take a step back. If you look at this cycle, it really started 2008
Hmm.
with the bad days, when
Okay.
when everything crashed.
Yes.
And then it wasn't until about 2010 that we even knew that the real estate market had a pulse. And now it's been just going great guns until about a year ago.
Right.
It's starting to stagnate. Well, from 2010 to 2023, 24. That's a long run.
That is.
All the way from someone being 13 in a middle school
Right,
to being 26 with a job,
right,
ready to buy real estate.
yes,
How are we preparing the people who are in middle school right now?
right,
So one of the things that we're starting to do is launching some financial literacy campaigns to see if we can help that next generation who don't even have a clue about anything yet.
right.
So they'll be ready to invest in real estate when the time comes. And unfortunately, I think we may have a generation that got skipped.
Mhm.
And my hope is that a bunch of those 18-year-olds that had to go through COVID in a rough time.
It was very rough for those
Yeah.
kids coming up. I think and my daughter's one of them. She's 20 now, but I'll tell you, all the kids that were in high school and middle school, just any school, all the kids during from this last 5 years, it's been tough for them, very tough.
But I think we can help them rebuild that. And I think it's going to start with financial literacy.
Right. Mhm. That's a very good I love it, I love it. So, your career is a masterclass in sustainable wealth building. If listeners walk away remembering just one lesson from your journey, what timeless principle do you want it to be?
Well, the thing that I keep telling myself, the one thing I always wish I remembered more is that real estate done best, in my mind, is real estate done slowly. There is a place for quick buys and sells. And come on, I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie. I love to find a deal and fix it up and sell it just like anybody else. But when you look at the course of a lifetime, real estate at its core done best is a long process when you want it to build over your career. It's more of a slow cooker and less of a microwave. So patience is key, but you'll be rewarded.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you, Dave. So, is there anything, that you think I left out? I think that was a great podcast.
I love it. Come visit us at the 1031investor.com. You can
Awesome.
actually talk to any of us. We'd love to hear your story and see how we can help you out.
And there's going to be all of Dave's book, his links, and all of that will be in the show notes. So, so excited that you can join us. And I think we talked about a lot of change and triumph. Thanks, Dave. All
So
right.
good to be here.
All right. You have a great day.